Hello, I'm the video professor, and you are about to learn software by means of a creative new concept in the computer industry. I'll take you step by step through learning your new software package. On the screen now are some other tapes available in my series. With them, you can watch and learn at your own speed. Stop and practice anytime you want, and review topics you don't understand. I suggest that you view each tape in its entirety. Then go back through the lesson with your computer and your software and practice each step. All of my tapes are designed to get you up and running quickly. Once you have viewed and practiced everything that is on these tapes, I think you'll find your software manual much easier to understand. And now, let's get started. Welcome to my introductory tape on learning DOS. For this lesson on learning to run your IBM or compatible computer, you will need a few things. 2 new 5 1/4 or 3 1/2-inch floppy disks, and a DOS disk version 2.1 or higher. Also, any kind of software program such as a word processor or game will be handy, as we will be demonstrating how to start one of these programs. Also, you will need a computer with 2 floppy disk drives or 1 floppy disk drive and a hard drive. Before going further, I'd like to introduce you to my student helpers, Nicole and Kelly. Nicole will be working on a 2-drive system, so if you have a system like hers, just follow along with her. Kelly is working on a single-drive system with a hard drive, so if you have that system, simply follow along with her. Most of what we talk about applies to both systems, and I'll let you know when you need to be aware of differences. Okay, let's start off by learning about the floppy disk. A floppy disk comes in 2 different sizes, 5 1/4 and 3 1/2-inch. They get the name floppy because the actual disk is floppy, even though the floppy disk in the 3 1/2-inch size is enclosed in a hard case. These disks hold lots and lots of information. It's kind of like the way a cassette works, which stores and plays sound. The diskette stores and plays data. When inserted into the computer can read the information on that disk and display it on the screen. Games, computer programs, and even letters to a friend are all stored on these disks and are referred to as data. Taking care not to damage a disk is very important. You should always put them in their protective sleeve and store them in a safe place. A hard shell, dust-free container is best. Keep away from heat and sunlight, drinks and cigarette smoke, magnetic sources such as telephones and TV sets, physical damage such as bending them, and don't touch the exposed area of the disk. There is another type of disk called a hard disk. The hard disk is a much thicker disk, usually located inside the computer itself, and can hold many, many times the data a floppy disk can hold. And a newer disk called the CD-ROM disk can hold even more data than the hard disk. You've probably heard the words hardware and software before. Well, the information on the floppy disk we've talked about is referred to as software. The computer parts such as the monitor, CPU, keyboard, and printer are referred to as hardware. The main part of the system is the CPU, which stands for Central Processing Unit. It contains all these computer chips and circuit boards and is the factory for processing data. It is the brains of the system. The one bank of chips I would like to point out here is the RAM chips, which stands for Random Access Memory. These chips take into their memory information or data that is stored on a floppy disk and keeps it there while you are using it. For example, if you were to load a game into the computer, the information on your game disk would be put into the RAM chip so you could play the game. The thing to remember here is once you turn the computer off, the information stored in these chips is lost. The information on your disk, however, is permanent. So when you want to play the game, you just load it into the computer again. We will talk more about what loading information into the computer means a little later. The keyboard is the main component for entering data into the system. It is similar to a typewriter, however, the added keys makes it possible to do many more commands. All keyboards have the same types of keys, but vary as to where these keys are located. They all have function keys which can be located on the left of the keyboard or along the top. These keys, usually marked with an F on them, have many purposes. Each program you run will use them in different ways. Some programs come with templates that fit over these keys, showing what they are used for. All keyboards have arrow keys which help you point and move to different parts of the computer screen. The Enter key, sometimes referred to as the return key, is the most used key of all. It usually has a bent arrow on it. This key is used to tell the computer to accept commands we want it to do. We will demonstrate how some of these keys work when we have something on our screen to work with. The monitor is where you see displayed the programs and data that is entered into the computer. They vary widely as to the resolution, meaning the sharpness of the image and how many colors they can display. Monochrome monitors have one color, and some monitors can display millions of colors. Printers also vary widely. The three basic styles are dot matrix, which print with little dots and makes letters look a little ragged. These printers have the capability to print graphic designs. Daisy wheel printers, also referred to as letter quality printers, print with solid letters like a typewriter, and prints high quality letters, but is limited to one style and size of its letters. The laser printers also print very high quality letters, but unlike the daisy wheel, can print all different sizes and styles of letters and print out all kinds of graphic designs. Well, enough about the computer components. Let's move on to starting the computer. The first thing you need to start your computer is DOS. DOS is a program that is located on a diskette. DOS stands for Disk Operating System and is the program that makes your computer work. In other words, you cannot run any software programs on your computer without first loading DOS. Loading is a computer term for taking data from a diskette and loading it into the computer's memory. And what is a disk operating system? Quite simply, an operating system is a translator. You see, you have your computer hardware, that is the CPU, monitor, and keyboard, and you have your software, that is the word processors, games, or other programs. The operating system takes instructions from these programs and translates them into instructions the hardware can understand. Computers are very simple machines. They need system software such as DOS to transform high-level commands like copy this letter into simpler instructions the computer can understand. Again, since DOS is a program, it is stored on a diskette. If you're using a computer with a hard disk, it is most likely stored on that disk. For purposes of this lesson, we will be working with the DOS on the floppy disk only. Before you can use DOS, you must load it into the computer's memory. This is known as starting up or booting up the computer. To do this, you need to insert the DOS disk into the A floppy disk drive. You are now looking at a floppy disk drive which is located on the CPU. The floppy disk drive has an opening for the disk to go into and a little handle called a drive door. On a single drive system, there is no problem finding drive A because it can only be drive A. But on a two-drive system, referred to as a dual drive system, you may have to check with someone to make sure which is drive A. Usually it is the drive on top. To insert the disk in the drive correctly, make sure you have the smooth side up. If it's the original DOS disk, it will be the side with the label. Make sure the end with the disk exposed and the oval hole goes in first. Close the drive door and turn the power on. You should also switch the monitor power on. You may hear a beep, and in a few seconds some information about your DOS disk and computer system will appear at the top of your screen. The disk drive will activate and you will see a red light on the disk drive as the DOS software is copied from the diskette into the system memory, or RAM, in the CPU. When you see this red light, don't open the drive door or you risk destroying the disk and the data on it. You will then see a request for the date and time. You can skip entering the date and time by hitting the Enter key twice. Let's do that. Simply press the Enter key twice. That is the one with the bent arrow on it. You now see an A followed by a greater than sign, followed by a short blinking line. This line is called the cursor and marks the spot on the screen where information or data will be placed when you type something. But first, let's clear the screen. We do this using the CLS command, which stands for Clear Screen. Anytime you type this command while in DOS, your screen will be cleared of all the information you had on it, and you will be returned to the A drive. Go ahead and type CLS and press Enter. We find ourselves back at the A prompt with a clear screen. Try typing your name. Notice how the cursor moves over a bit to mark where each letter will show up next. If you make a mistake here, you can correct it using the backspace key, which is usually located at the top right part of your keyboard. It has a straight arrow pointed to the left on it, and it sometimes has the word back on it. Try this. Hold down the G key for a couple of seconds. Notice how the letter keeps repeating itself. Now press the backspace key and notice how the characters are erased one at a time. If you type something in wrong, simply use the backspace key to erase the mistake and then type it in correctly. Okay, hold the backspace key down until all the text is erased, and we are back to the A greater than sign with our cursor. This will become an old friend as you will see it often. It is called the DOS prompt. By that we mean that the disk operating system, DOS, is waiting to be told what to do next. The A means that the system is ready to read or write from the A drive. If you had a B prompt on the screen, the B prompt would indicate that DOS is looking at the B drive instead. The C would mean DOS is looking at the hard drive. The drive letter that is shown at the DOS prompt is called the default drive or the current drive. That means everything written or retrieved will go to or come from the current or default drive. Again, if we had a B prompt on the screen, all our information would default to or from our B drive. Here is how you can change the default drive. If you have a dual drive system, you must first insert any kind of program disk in the B drive and at the A prompt type B: and press Enter. If you don't have a second or B drive, type C: to switch to your hard drive. We now see our DOS prompt is B greater than or C greater than. And all data will be written to or coming from our new default drive, the B or C drive. Okay, everyone type A: and Enter, and we are back to our A drive. Let's take a look at another DOS command. One of the most useful is dir, which stands for directory. Let's see what entering dir at the prompt will do. Simply type dir and press Enter. Remember, if you make a mistake, you can press the backspace key one or more times to correct it. Simply press the backspace key until the unwanted letters disappear, and type in the correct letters. Now press the Enter key. The dir command displays on the screen a list of all the files contained on the diskette in the default drive, which is the DOS disk in drive A in our case. If you were to insert another disk in this drive, the dir command would give you a list of the files on that disk. Try it. Take your DOS disk out of drive A and insert any other program disk. Type dir and Enter. We put in a word processor program and are now looking at the files on that disk. Okay, now take the program disk out of drive A. Insert your DOS disk again and type dir and Enter. You now see the files on the DOS diskette with the first column being the name of each file. Now let's get a better idea about what these files are. Files are the computer's way of organizing information on a disk. Diskettes hold files just like a filing cabinet you would see in an office or library. Each diskette is kind of like a drawer. Suppose this drawer was a word processing disk. When you open the drawer, you can see all the files that it contains, just like the dir command does to look at the disk files. Now suppose that in this filing drawer you had a letter to a friend. All you would do to see it is open that file. The same is true for the files on the disk. If you had a letter to a friend, all you would do to see it is open that file. This is an oversimplified explanation because each file has certain procedures that need to be followed to open that file. Here are some files from the DOS disk. Each file is a separate program that the computer needs to operate and perform certain functions. For example, the file diskcopy.com is a program which makes exact copies of files from one diskette to another. Other disks may contain files that are lists of information like names and addresses, or they may be word processing documents like your letter to a friend. Files can also be complete programs. There are 6 basic types of programs that are used on a computer. DOS and word processing are 2 we've discussed. Databases are used to keep track of names and addresses, such as you see in the phone book. Spreadsheets are used to keep track of finances, using numbers like a calculator to show profit and loss. Desktop publishing lets you draw things and design the way you might put a newsletter together. And of course, there are games. DOS has certain rules about file names. A file name can only be 1 to 8 characters long, with an optional extension. An extension is a period followed by 1 to 3 characters. The period does not show up in the file listing. A file name can include the letters A to Z and digits 0 to 9. You can use most of the special character symbols like $signs, percent signs, or the plus sign. But there can be no spaces between characters. Oh, one more thing. No 2 files on the same diskette can have the same file name and extension. The extensions must be different if the file names are the same, and the file names must be different if the extensions are the same. As you can see on the screen, there are files with the extension EXE, COM, and SYS. These extensions are usually abbreviations that tell what kind of file it is. For example, EXE stands for execution, COM is a command file, and SYS is a system file. Some word processors automatically name all documents with the DOC extension. LTR is an extension that is often used to designate a letter. There are many other types of extensions. Some programs add their own and others let you create them. Like the letter to your friend, you could enter under the file name and extension friend.ltr. Generally, if a file name has an extension, you must include it when you refer to that file. File size and disk space are measured in bytes. This part of the file tells you how many bytes the file is taking up on the disk. The word byte is a computer term which can generally be regarded as the same as a character. A character is any letter, number, symbol, or space between them. If you have a disk that holds 360,000 bytes of information, that means it can hold about that many characters or enough letters to make a book of approximately 240 pages. The last part of the file name shows the date and time the file was created or last modified. Let's look at some variations of the directory command. If you have 40 or 50 files on a diskette, DOS will scroll directly to the end. It is very hard to read these files as they race by. There are 2 commands that will help with this problem, but first let's clear the screen. Go ahead and type CLS and press Enter. Let's add the /P option to our dir command. After the dir command, type /P as you see now. When the Enter key is pressed to start this command, watch what happens. When the first screen full of files appear, it stops. Notice the message strike any key when ready. To see the rest of the files, simply press any key until the entire directory is displayed. At the bottom of the file listing, we see how many files are on that disk and how many bytes are free, or how many characters can be added to the disk. Let's clear the screen. The second variation is to replace the P with a W. Type dir/W. This will display the directory in columns. Watch. You will notice that this method does not show the file size or the date and time. If you had more than one screen full using /W, the /P option can be added here to stop at each screen full. Okay, you should now know the difference between hardware and software and how they work. You should know what DOS is and how files are set up on disk. If you are not comfortable with the information covered so far, you may want to go back and review before going on. As with any subject covered on this tape, just rewind the tape to review that section. We've already learned the CLS and DIR commands of DOS. Now let's learn and practice with some more DOS commands. The first is format. The reason for this command is a disk must be formatted before it can hold data. You can buy pre-formatted diskettes, but usually you must format new disks. The format command physically prepares the disk to hold data by creating invisible tracks and sectors. This is kind of like an unmarked parking lot. Until the lines are painted on it, cars don't know where to park. These tracks and sectors tell data where to park. The format command also checks for defective spots on the diskette. You need to format a diskette when it is new, however, you can format it again at any time. This is called reformatting. But be warned, reformatting erases any information already on the diskette. Now be careful here. If you are following along with the tape, be sure to follow our instructions carefully. We don't want you to reformat and erase your DOS disk. A sure way to protect from erasing any disk is to attach what is called a Write Protect tab. Simply cover up the notch on the side of the disk with the tab, and no information can be written over the data already on the disk, while the computer can still get information from the disk. To Write Protect a 3.5-inch disk, slide the little tab so you can see through it. Okay, dual drive users, remember to follow along with Nicole. And hard drive users with a single floppy disk drive, follow along with Kelly. If your system has a hard drive with 2 floppy disk drives, I suggest you follow along with Nicole and the dual drive users. Everyone should still have the DOS disk loaded in drive A. Kelly, at the A prompt, simply type format space A:, to format a disk on a single drive system. If you have a dual drive system, follow Nicole and type format space B:. This tells DOS to format the new disk in the B drive. Okay, everyone press enter. Kelly, notice the message asking you to put your new disk in drive A. If you did the format B: with Nicole, you would be asked to insert a new diskette in the B drive. At this point, for single drive formatting, be sure to replace the DOS diskette with a new disk before pressing the Enter key. Dual drive users, put your new disk in drive B. Now everyone press the Enter key. The messages and numbers displayed on your screen while the disk is formatting may vary here depending on the version of DOS and the type of disk drive you have. This takes a while, so we'll jump to the end. When DOS finishes formatting, the message Format Complete will appear with the following information: the bytes of total disk space, the bytes available on disk, and finally, you are asked if you want to format another disk. This message may also include information about bad sectors. Again, don't be concerned if your screen reads different than ours. We don't want to format the other disk, so press N for no and press Enter. Now we have formatted a diskette. It is now ready to hold information. Okay, things are going to get a little tricky here because of the 2 systems we are demonstrating on. The commands we will be using are similar, but hard disk users need to do some extra setup procedures to continue. Dual drive users, please be patient as we go through this, but do watch it as it will help you to understand hard disks. Again, I suggest if you have a hard disk and 2 floppy disk drives, just use the floppy disk drives. To get a better understanding of how a hard disk works, you'll need to see my tape Learning DOS Level 2, where we cover in detail what we are about to do. Okay, Kelly, and hard disk users, replace your formatted disk in Drive A with your DOS disk. It's a good idea to always label your disks to keep track of what's on them. So put a label on this disk and write Formatted in the top corner so you know this is the disk that you formatted. With the DOS disk back in the A drive, clear the screen and type C: and press Enter. You should now see a C prompt on your screen. Hard disk drives also need to be formatted to hold data, and yours has probably already been formatted, so all we need to do now is set up a subdirectory on it to hold DOS. A subdirectory is a place we can set up on the hard disk to hold different programs. We are going to set one up to hold DOS. Be careful to follow our instructions closely, as DOS is probably already installed on your hard drive, and we don't want to mess up any files that already exist on it. Type MD at the C prompt, a space, then DOS2. Make sure your command looks like ours. MD stands for Make Directory, and we added the 2 to the word DOS because there might already be a directory on your hard drive named DOS. Remember, no 2 files can have the exact same name. Okay, press Enter. Now to open that subdirectory, type CD, which stands for Change Directory, a space, then type DOS2 and Enter. We now have a place on the hard drive that we can use just like a formatted floppy disk, but it's hard to tell because our prompt just has the C greater than sign. We can use the prompt command to change this. Type prompt, a space, then a $, P, then a $, G, and press Enter. There, now we can see we are in the subdirectory DOS2. Although we won't be demonstrating how to use subdirectories on floppy disks, I'd like to show you dual drive users how you can change your prompt so you could tell them apart. At the A prompt, simply type prompt, a space, then a $, P, then a $, G, and press Enter. Notice the prompt has changed, and if you did have subdirectories on your disk, they would be displayed. Okay, clear the screen. Hard disk users, make sure you have the C: /DOS2 prompt on your screen. And 2 floppy disk drive users, make sure to type in B: and Enter so you have a B prompt on your screen. Okay, for the rest of this lesson, I will be demonstrating DOS commands on both systems. In general, hard drive users need only to type C: /DOS2, where floppy drive users type B:. Let's copy one of your DOS files from one disk to another. The copy command allows us to do this. Let's copy the file tree.com that is located on the DOS disk. Nicole, with the DOS diskette we wish to copy from in Drive A, and the blank formatted disk we're going to copy to in Drive B. Simply type in copy, space, A:, tree.com, space, B:. Hard disk users, remember to use the C: /DOS2 command instead of the B:. This will copy the file tree.com from the DOS disk in Drive A to your hard disk. Dual drive users are copying the file to the formatted disk in Drive B. The A drive is the source drive, and the B or C drive is the destination. It is source destination or from to. Okay, everyone press Enter. When the file is copied, the One File Copied message will appear. To check and see that our tree.com file did copy, make sure you have your destination drive prompt on the screen. B: for Nicole, and C: /DOS2 for Kelly, and type dir and enter. And there is our file. Now let's look at a way to copy all the files from the DOS disk so we can have a copy of our original DOS disk. It is always a good idea to make a copy of all your software programs and use them instead of the originals, and put the originals in a safe place so you don't accidentally lose or destroy them. We will use the disk copy command to make this working copy of our DOS disk. The disk copy command is a little different than the copy command because it will copy everything from one disk to another disk, including the format. In other words, you don't have to format a new disk before you copy files to it using the disk copy command. Disk copy will not work for copying files to the hard disk. Its purpose is to make exact copies of a floppy disk, so hard drive users will have to copy to and from drive A. So first type A: and press enter to change your default drive. Now clear the screen. With the DOS disk in drive A, type disk copy space A: space A:. Nicole, on your dual drives, you'll need to type A: to change to that drive, and make sure the DOS disk is in drive A. Now type disk copy space A: space B:. With that done, everyone press enter. You are now prompted to insert the source disk in drive A. We are copying our DOS disk and it's already there. If you wanted to copy a different disk, you would put that disk in drive A. If you are using a dual floppy system with Nicole, then you are also prompted to place your destination or target disk in drive B. Let's use the new disk we have not formatted now. So, Nicole, take out your formatted disk in drive B, make sure you label it so you know what it is, and insert your new unformatted disk in drive B, and everyone press enter when ready. Single floppy drive users may be asked to swap your source and destination disk a few times, depending on your DOS version. Be sure you use your unformatted disk too. After a short time, we see a prompt asking you if you want to copy another disk. Press N for no. Kelly, type dir at the prompt and enter to see if our files did copy. There they are. Dual drive users, I'd like to show you a new trick. If you would like to see the directory of the disk in the B drive while still at the A prompt, just type dir space B:. Press enter, and there is our directory of the disk in B drive. Notice with this command we still default back to the A drive. Again, be careful when using the disk copy command because it reformats the disk you are copying to and will erase anything that is on that disk. However, disk copy is the best way to make a backup copy of your most important diskettes. Now we have a working copy of the DOS disk, so put the original in a safe place, and we'll use the copy for the rest of this lesson. Again, be sure to label our new copy of DOS so you know what it is. Call it DOS copy. Sometimes you may want to copy all of the files that are on one disk to another disk that already contains files that you don't want to erase. This is done by using the copy command and the *** option. In DOS, the *** represents all of the files and their extensions. Let's copy all of our listed DOS files from our copy of the DOS disk using this command. Kelly, type C: and enter to get back to our DOS2 subdirectory. Nicole, make sure you are at the A prompt and have your blank formatted disk ready. Okay, everyone, put your copy of the DOS disk in drive A and type copy space A colon, star dot star, space, B colon, or C colon / DOS for hard disk users. Actually, hard disk users did not have to type the C colon / DOS2 in this command, since we are in that drive to start with. But it's not bad practice to ensure that you don't make any mistakes. Dual drive users need to insert the disk we want to copy to in the B drive, so put the new formatted disk in that drive. Hard drive users are copying to the hard drive and don't have to do anything with a floppy disk. Okay, everyone press enter and watch as the files copy. This will take a while for all the files to copy, so we'll jump to the end. Did the files really copy? Nicole type B colon and enter. Then the dir command to see if our files really copied. Kelly, to check your drive, just type dir at the C prompt, and there's our files. Nicole, type A colon and enter. And now clear the screen. Well, we've talked enough about copying files. Let's see how to get rid of them. The delete command is another important DOS command. This is the command to make a file or files vanish from the disk. Perhaps you need to remove old documents you no longer need. Let's use the new formatted disk you just copied your DOS files on and delete the tree.com file. Nicole, take your copy of the DOS disk out of drive A and replace it with the formatted disk that is in drive B. And at the A prompt, type del space tree.com. Again, it's a good practice to put the drive designator in this command. So erase this with the backspace key, and to add the drive name to this command, type A colon tree.com. This will make it less likely to erase a file from the wrong place. Kelly, type del space C colon / DOS2, a backslash, then tree.com. The backslash is something needed by DOS to tell it where to look for the tree file. Now everyone press enter. Now let's check the directory to see if the tree file is gone. Nowhere to be seen. Be very careful with the delete command. You may accidentally erase files you want to keep. Let's clear the screen again. The star.star command can also be used with the delete command to delete all the files on a disk or subdirectory. Be very careful with this command. It can cause a lot of damage very quickly. Nicole, you should still have the second copy of your DOS disk in drive A. That's the new formatted disk. So at the A prompt, type del space A colon star.star. Kelly, type del space C colon /DOS2 /star.star, and everyone press enter. For deletions as drastic as this, DOS will ask you if you are sure. We don't want to keep this copy of DOS on the hard drive or disk, so everyone type Y and enter to confirm. Nicole, your file should be gone, but Kelly, let's check your directory. The delete command did erase all the files in our subdirectory, but did not erase the directory itself. Notice the two files marked dir that still exist. You cannot erase a directory while in that directory. Kelly, clear the screen and type cd / and enter, so we can change to another directory on the hard drive. Now that we're back in the root directory, type rd space DOS2 and enter. RD stands for remove directory. Now type cd / space DOS2 and enter to see our DOS2 directory. We've done it. DOS2 no longer exists. Let's move on. Sooner or later, your computer will get stuck or freeze up, and you won't be able to get it to do anything. There are many ways that this can happen. If you get stuck and cannot get your computer going again, rather than turning it off and starting over, you can warm boot the computer. A warm boot recycles the machine much like turning it off and then on, but much faster. To warm boot your computer, hit the Control, Alt, and Delete keys at the same time. You will lose data that wasn't saved to disk if you are in the middle of a program, but if you are really stuck, it is faster than turning off the machine. Saving data to a disk is very important in case something does happen and you lose power to your computer. Most programs you use will have a save command which simply takes the data you've typed into the memory of your computer, the RAM we mentioned earlier, and puts it in permanent storage on a disk so it can't be lost. Now that we have shown you the basics of how to use your computer and a few of the DOS commands, we are ready to talk about running programs. There are many programs available from many sources. The manuals available with these programs usually tell you how to start up the program. Usually this is done by placing the diskette containing the program in drive A and typing in a command at the A prompt. Sometimes there are more elaborate procedures to follow. The manual usually warns you to make backup copies of the program disks before using them. Making backups of all important diskettes is the key to trouble-free computing. Unless the software manual tells you otherwise, use the disk copy command to copy the diskettes. Before we go further, I would like to tell you the proper way to always turn off your computer. Never turn it off in the middle of a program. Make sure you are back to the DOS prompt, then you are safe to turn it off. Go ahead and do that now. Now I'd like to walk you through the correct procedure for starting a program such as a word processor or game on the computer. We will be starting a game. First, we start up or boot the computer by inserting our copy of the DOS disk in drive A and turning on the computer. Again, we are presented with the opening screen and requested to enter the date and time. You can enter the date and time here, but since most computers have an internal clock, just press enter twice and the computer accepts the new date and time and takes us back to our DOS prompt. We are ready to make a working copy of the game disk. Since we want to copy the whole disk, we'll use the disk copy command and won't need to format a disk because disk copy will copy the format off of the program disk. Nicole at the A prompt, type disk copy space A colon space B colon and press enter. Kelly, type disk copy space A colon space A colon and enter. Nicole, replace the DOS copy disk with your program disk in drive A and put the new disk we just deleted the files from in drive B. Kelly, follow the instructions on the screen for inserting your program or source disk and your new disk or destination disk in drive A. If the program has more than one disk, you'll need to follow the instructions and answer yes to copy all of them. After all the files have copied and we've labeled our disk, we're ready to load the program into the computer. To do this, put the original program disk or disks in a safe place and insert the copy into the A drive. When more than one disk is involved, the manual will tell you which one to load first. Some programs are so big they require that you have to install them on a hard drive and create a subdirectory for them like we did for our DOS subdirectory. Every game or program has its own keywords to type in to tell the computer to load it in memory. You'll have to read the manual or see one of my videos on that software to know what it is. The game we're going to start wants us to type in TREK. So all we do is type TREK and press enter and we're on our way. Is that all there is to DOS? No, there is a lot more to know about DOS, especially if your computer has a hard drive. My tape on Learning DOS Level 2 has that information. But you know the basics. Many people use their computers a long time and very successfully, knowing no more than what was on this tape. Before closing, I'd like to give you my 10 hints for successful computing. Number 1, always back up your software. Make working copies of the disk and use the copies. Keep the originals in a safe place. Number 2, make backups of important data. Floppy disks are fragile. Don't allow important records to be lost. Number 3, label your software so you'll easily be able to find out what's on them, even a year from now when you have more diskettes. Number 4, handle your disk with care. That means keep them away from heat and away from cigarette smoke. Don't expose them to magnetism. Don't put them next to your phone, for instance, and don't touch the exposed surfaces. Number 5, always exit your program and get a DOS prompt before you shut off your computer. Number 6, computers are very literal-minded. Pay attention to typing things in exactly right. If you get a wrong letter in the file name, you may delete the wrong file. Or, if you don't leave a space in the right place in a DOS command, the command may not work. Number 7, save your work to the disk often. When you are using your software, you could lose hours of work if a power failure causes your computer's memory to fail. Your work will be safe if you save it to the disk. Number 8, keep drinks away from your computer keyboard. A small spill can be costly. Number 9, don't be afraid of your computer. It's hard to hurt it. As long as you don't physically abuse it, it's hard to do any permanent damage. Number 10, use your manual. It can take time to learn how to use computer manuals. In your DOS manual, for example, you must become familiar with the syntax or style that is used to explain commands. It is very helpful to know this syntax. There should be a section in the manual that explains it. If you need to know exactly how a command must be written, where to put the source, and destination drive designated, for example, the DOS manual will tell you. Well, I think we've covered enough for this lesson. Remember that you can rewind this tape and view some or all topics again. Other tapes available from me, the Video Professor, are on your screen right now. Happy computing!